them on tape. There's from what we saw last week, but there's also some differences too. So I think they both kind of have their own personalities on what they're doing with their personnel, because personnel dictates a lot of stuff. So you can't just pop a scheme in there and say, okay, this one size fits all. It doesn't work that way. You've got to take your personnel and try to fit it within your scheme and make some adjustments to give yourself a chance to be successful. So there are a lot of similarities, from a philosophy standpoint, but they have different people, different personnel, and so there's some differences as far as how they do things, whether it be third down, whether it be their pressure packages, some of that type of stuff, some of the things they're doing coverage-wise, but similar for sure. And I don't know what the last part. Did you ask me another question?
About Nate Woody himself, you guys.
Yeah, I don't really know Nate. I may have met him somewhere along the way. App's been down here a few times, but I don't really know him.
Do you think that Paul Johnson maybe doesn't get enough credit or is undervalued as a coach, considering that's not a sexy system to recruit to? He's never high in the recruiting rankings, but always puts out a competitive program that has won ACC championships.
Yeah, I think Paul Johnson's a great football coach. I mean, he's been doing it a long time. He's won a bunch of games. And so I don't think he's really worried about all that. I think he's just worried about, trying to win this game this week and get better at what they're doing. But he's been successful because he's been incredibly committed to what he does. And his career speaks for itself. He really doesn't owe anybody any apologies or explanation. He's one of the winningest coaches that has come through. And again, he's done it. Yes, he's been unique, but he's been incredibly successful doing it his way.
Is it unique that he also doesn't use a play sheet, like he just does it off the top of his head?
It's because he don't need a play sheet. All he needs is answers. Who's tackling the fullback, who's running the alley, who's supporting the edge, what are they doing on the back end, who's tackling my quarterback. And then he's just got answers. And when you've done it as long as him, I mean, he just knows it inside and out. And that's one of the reasons he's been so successful. And so few people do it. If you aren't really schooled up on it, he's going to get you. He's going to get you sooner or later. And if you only got one pitch, he's definitely going to get you. You've got to mix it up on him. You can't just you do the same thing over and over, you're in trouble, because he's seen it all. He's seen it all.
Coach, you mentioned that these are all different flavors of ice cream, but what specifically makes Georgia Tech unique from other, option offenses? Yeah,
well, some of the formation stuff that they do, like for example, Georgia Southern they don't really cut a lot. They're really more split zone read, option principles that way, more double teams, as opposed Georgia Tech will cut you. All right, a little bit different schematically as far as how they block. Formations are different, so just a little more unique in his style of play, and that makes him different.
And I guess going off the cut blocking, how as a defensive lineman, how can you counteract that?
You got to if it's something that you don't see all the time, then you better make sure you've worked on it a lot. But you got to play with your hands. You got to understand formations. You got to understand splits. You got to understand how to play with your pads, and use your hands to defeat the blocks. So that just comes with some experience and just training your guys to go against it. It's one of the reasons, like I said, we work it all the time, because it's different. It's different, as opposed to seeing teams that are zone teams and you're trying to create distortion in the run lanes and covering guys up, and guys are moving and backs are pressing and creasing. It's different than when it's just trying to chop people down and get the ball on the perimeter right now. So just different techniques and different fundamentals. But number one, you got to have your eyes on the right things. Like I said, understand splits and formations, And then you got to do a great job playing with your hands, man. And you've got to have a mindset that's different when you play a team like this.
Did you like the NCAA's more restrictive rules on cut blocking?
Yeah, I think it's safer for the game. I mean, there's really, I think some things have changed, but they're still cutting in the box. And I think that's fine. The biggest things that they took out were the things that needed to be taken out, and that was people cutting downfield, people cutting on kind of starting in the box and coming around and cutting, and then receivers, and I used to coach that all the time. I mean, that was an equalizer as a receiver. So you got a guy that's blowing down on you 100 miles an hour, and he knows you can't cut him. That's a tough deal. But when he knows that you can cut him, it's a little bit of an equalizer for you. So kind of everybody had to play a little more under control. But now you can't cut past 5 yards. Used to, you'd see guys cutting down the field and things like that. So I think it's definitely made the game safer.
Coach Dorian O'Daniel always played so well against this Tech offense the last couple of years. You feel like Isaiah Simmons really has the toolkit to be able to step up in that void?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, that's why he's our starter. I mean, he's got the toolkit to play in any style of play. I mean, he's a very dynamic guy. He's long. I thought last week he got better. I didn't think he played very well against A&M. But last week I thought he got better, and he got back to some basic things. He's physical. He really played physical. He brings a lot of the same attributes as Dorian. He's just longer, bigger, and probably a better cover guy when it's all said and done. When he really kind of gets a little more polished up. But I'm really proud of him, and but he can do whatever we need him to do. He's very dynamic. He can go play safety. He could play either one, free, strong. He's a unique player in that regard.
From the standpoint of your offense, you worry on one end of the spectrum or the other about time of possession in a game like this with their offensive approach?
Well, I mean, if you turn it over, it could be a problem. I think that's the formula for disaster. Is the name of the game is points. To me, I don't really get too caught up in the time of possession stuff. Back in the day, I did. That was one of the first things you did back when I was playing. You looked over and you said, okay, who won the time of possession battle? It's one of the things, well, if we can win that time of possession battle and we win the turnover, I don't really pay attention to that anymore. But when you play a team like Georgia Tech, a recipe for disaster is like last week, when you're eating clock and putting drives together and then you get nothing, you turn it over in the red zone, you do stuff like that, you're in trouble because the clock's gonna run, they're gonna milk the clock, and if you give them a short field or two and not make them have to go the distance and get chunks, you get beat. And I've seen that movie, I've lived it. You better take advantage of your opportunities. And again, whether you put a 15-play drive together and you take a bunch of time, or you score in 3 plays, I don't really care. Just take advantage of your opportunities when they present themselves against a team like this. Whether it's a field goal, a touchdown, and you get a scoring opportunity, you've got to take advantage of those. Because when you don't, that's just beautiful for them because the clock has run and you've gotten nothing for it. So we all seen that around here. I mean, not necessarily just against Georgia Tech. I mean, I can't remember who it was. I don't know if it was either Pitt or NC State. I can't remember. We had like 5 turnovers, and I think 3 of them were inside the 5-yard line. Literally, like inside the 10-yard line or something like that. You got 0, and you got a bunch of yards, but you got nothing, and then all of a sudden you get beat. It's every week, but when you're playing that style of play, and you may not get many at-bats, you have to take advantage of your scoring opportunities.
When you look
Coach,
at,
you mentioned in the,
Go ahead.
Ladies first.
When you look at the version of Travis Etienne last year, week 2, wasn't really even ready to play against Auburn, and where he is now, just how far has he come and how has he done it?
Oh, man, he's he's done it by, first of all, just being incredibly committed, and he's obviously very talented. He had a very good year last year. He was a pretty green football player, but now he's just more knowledgeable. He's more confident. He's more physical. He's bigger, stronger, faster. He's just all of those things, and he's got the experience to go with it. So, really proud of him. I mean, he's over 1,000 yards, and I think it's like 7. He's the all-time yards per carry guy. And, I mean, we've had some good backs come through here. And he's just, he just kind of quietly does it. Like last year, I think he broke Spiller's freshman record. Spiller was a pretty good freshman around here. And I think back when Spiller was here, and it was like, oh, my God. I mean, he's one of the best football players I've ever seen on a field, ever, even to this day. But he was kind of loud in how he did it, He wasn't loud but he just was loud in how he did it on the field. I don't know. Maybe it was just different at the time, but whereas Travis is, you just look up and you go, well, dang. He's over 1,000 yards and averaged 7.9 a carry. He's been here a year. And you're like, man, he's just, I don't know, he's just a little, it just sneaks up on you. I don't know how else to describe it, but he's special. He's a special talent, and he's earned it. I mean, that's some pretty gaudy numbers, what he's done in however many games he's played in. And I don't think he's going to get worse. I think he's going to continue to improve and get better. And